Welcome to Buc'In the News, presented by the Pewtercast. I am Brent Allen, your host. I am on the road this week, so I'm hanging out in a hotel lobby. And through the magic of the internet and everything that we have going on, I've got my co-host with me, as always, Mr. Ren Daxt. Ren, how's it going down there in sunny Florida tonight?
It's going well. You know, it's a little late for us. Not for us to be doing a podcast, but definitely to start a podcast. So, yeah, a little something new. Brent's on the road. It's shades of our first Talking Knox episode where I met you in Orlando. And we watched it in the lobby, then went live in the lobby. So yeah, I'm picturing in my head.
Yeah, it's a little less technically difficult when I don't have to do a call-in show and set that up. It can just be you and me over Skype, but yeah, you're saying you've got it pictured in your head.
Yeah, you know, you're sitting in the lobby with all your computers in front of you and your headphones on, your mic, and people walking in and out, giving us strange looks. And now it's just you. Just you get strange looks.
Right, it's just me staring them down. Be like, hey, what's up? You want to come talk? Don't come talk. Go to your room and leave me alone. It's pretty much how that goes. Well, guys, this is our Buc'In the News show. This is our end of the week wrap-up show where Ren and I get to just kind of sit down and take a look at the headlines from the course of the week. I do want to apologize. I can hear it a little bit in my headphones if there's a few pops or different things like that happening. I don't have all the normal gear that I normally would. I'll try to remember this in the future when I'm on the road. So I apologize for that ahead of time. But this is where we get to talk about all the news and headlines that kind of came out this week that we haven't had a chance to talk about. We'll look at the injury report before we head out. But, Ren, we always start this show looking at the transactions that the Buccaneers made, and I'm pulling up the website right now, and lo and behold, we made 0 transactions this week. Yep. And that actually might lead us into one of our headlines.
All right.
Well,
go right ahead.
As I'm sure most people are aware of, this last week, the trade deadline for the 2017 season approached and passed, and the Buccaneers didn't do squat, like nothing at all. And I've seen lots of people sounding off on that, a lot of people having things to say. But, Ren, I'll kind of throw this out to you. Thoughts on the idea of not trading for anybody or shoring up what is certainly an ailing pass rush and maybe a few other spots?
Well, it's so difficult being on the outside looking in. Even, you know, if we did have press credentials and we were there every day, you know, the media was allowed to be there, we still wouldn't know. We don't know if Jason Light tried or not. We don't know how close he came. You know, it takes 2 to tango. What we do know is that Jason Light is not afraid to make a move. He's done so in every draft. You know, he picked up T.J. Ward, a big name, you know, right before the start of the season. So they're always out there looking, and they have their list. So I'm sure he got on the phone and talked to some people. But, you know, I like the way him and Greenberg. I guess Greenberg really doesn't have anything to do with trades, just the contract part. But if it's not really good for the Bucs, they don't really go for it. They're not looking for a Band-Aid or a quick fix. They're in this they're building the team for the long haul. So, yes, when you've lost 4 in a row, when GM doesn't make a move and you have glaring holes at defensive line, edge rushing, maybe even if you wanted to get picky, you could, start talking about the offensive line as far as run blocking. The corners were not very deep at. Running back even, some of those anti-Doug Martin people, and they have a leg to stand on. I don't think he's broken 100 yards this year, so he hasn't had an outstanding year. He's been very average since he's been back. So I get it, but we just don't know how hard he tried or if he tried or how close they were or even if there was somebody out there that they were looking for or even available for trade. It's not always such a great idea just to go get a guy because it's going to cost you draft picks.
Yeah, focusing in on kind of the last thing you just said there, I feel like a lot of the fan base just wanted him to get somebody just so that it felt like something was happening,
Right.
And it really wasn't a question of getting the right person or making the right trade for the team. They just wanted something. They wanted to see something happen. And, the truth is there may not have been a defensive end available for trade for anywhere near an okay price.
Not one that would make a difference.
Exactly. I mean, sure, they probably could have called up the Jaguars, offered Jaguars like 4 first-round picks for the next bunch of years and gotten Calais Campbell, but that would be a stupid trade.
Mm-hmm.
Like, stupid. So, I don't blame them. I don't have a problem with it. I've said several times, yes, there are places and there are holes in this team that need to be shored up. That's going to come through the draft. That's going to come through free agency. But we have the talent. I think we have the talent on this team that we need to win. And even the places that are thin, we have enough talent around them in other spots that it should be able to make up for it. The team's just not executing right now. There's other issues other than a lack of talent. So, and there is a little bit of lack of talent in some areas. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we're perfect in every spot. But, I don't think that our most glaring hole is just a lack of talent. So I didn't have a problem with it. I'm really glad that they're not leveraging the future to get it, as you say, a quick fix. I like how you put that, Ren.
Yeah. Yeah, so agreed. Like I said, it would have been nice. And this is how I really think this week has been. I've been really quiet this week as far as like Bucs talk and Twitter and all those type of things. It's I've been having a hard time just reading, scrolling through Twitter longer than a minute before I just close it and I sort of put the phone down. And from what I see, it's everyone's entitled to their opinion. I just don't agree with it, and sort of this venom that's being spewed all the time, and people are jumping off the bandwagon. I'll be a fan for life, but this team stinks, or this team sucks. People are like attacking Robert Ayers on Twitter, things like that. So this is what I've come up with, sort of in my brain, to make me feel better about the way things are going, fan wise. Is most of the people on Twitter that I see that are Buck fans are male, and when something's broke, I think it's natural instinct for, as guys, men, males, to want to fix it, to figure it out. The problem is, you can't. This team is so we said it in the Instacast and all, during the main show as well. Is the only thing that's consistent about this team is inconsistency. So there's nothing you can point to fix it. It's not the alternator. It's not a flat tire. It's not a leaky toilet. You can't just. There's nothing you can really put your hands on and wrap your mind around. Why is this team failing as bad as it is? And then add on the high expectations the fans had, including myself, and then it gets frustrating. So, you start to vent and lash out because you don't know what to do, and then these narratives that aren't tangible has to come in. Well, I can't figure out how to fix it. Like, I can't put my hands on it. I can't figure it out. So it's got to be something at like culture or leadership or heart. These seem to be the three narratives that have been going around probably since the Buffalo game, and then they really came to light, after that Carolina loss. So that's how I'm sort of dealing with it as a Bucs fan, is that people are confused. I don't want to say confused. That's not fair, but people don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to fix it. There's just one glaring problem. You can point to every position on the field at one point or another, offensive and defensively, that has gone to losing games and been maybe the main reason we lost games. All the units on both sides of the ball. So it's been a rough week to be a fan. It's just, yeah, that's how I'm ending that, not by not ending it.
Yeah, I can certainly understand that. Now, I'm going to maybe be on the other side of the table from you, because I do think that there is a thing to pointing towards and looking at leadership and heart and culture, but those are tales, if that makes sense. Like they're not. It's not the hey. Well, yeah, I don't even know where to go with that. Those are things that you kind of point to as evidence of something that you're seeing over here. But I certainly understand what you're talking about as far as the people are looking for something to blame. They're looking for something to fix. And, you bring up a really good analogy with that, Ren, because, you and I were talking just a little bit before we started of there really isn't a ton of news coming out of one Buck this week. As far as like individual pieces, it was kind of a very blasé week as far as that goes. But still following with what a lot of the fans are saying, I understand it's been a very trying week, not just because of what the Bucs have given us, but just in dealing with our community, because everybody's processing it. And it's an interesting, you talk about, as men, we want to fix it. And the vast majority of fans that we see are men, and that's true for me. And, it makes me think about, like, my wife sometimes. And we were going through, like, premarital counseling, and that was one of the things that they always told me was, listen, Brent, you're not always going to be able to fix it. She doesn't want you to fix it and come in and fix it for her. She just wants you to be there for her. And I've noticed over the years that that's actually true. Like, if I come home, she's having a hard time, and she starts telling me about it, I have a tendency to want to go, oh, well, you should do this, and you should do that, and you should make this. And none of that is helpful. Right. None of it is. Really, she just needs me to be on her side. She's going to figure it out. She's going to get it. She's perfectly smart. She's capable of doing everything she needs to do. And in a little bit of a way, or maybe a lot of way, I think that might correlate with the team. Like, they're going to figure it out. They don't need us to tell them what to do. They're perfectly smart on their own. Jason Light, Dirk Cutter, the team. These are professionals. They just need us as fans to be there for them. Yeah, it sucks right now. I don't know that the analogy perfectly carries over, but I've never thought of it in that way, and I find that really interesting, Ren.
Yeah, it's because I had a hard, like you said, it's been a hard week being a fan. There was nothing to point to, and there was nothing coming out of one Buck. It was a lot of players speak, like almost two-man. It was, we got to play better. Robert Ayers, we got to play better. Mike Evans, we got to play better. Jameis Winston, got to play better. Monken, Cutter, Mike Smith. Everybody was, we got to play better. Like we get it. Like, we got to play better. So, there was nothing we could sort of hang our hat on. The biggest news that came out was this whole identity narrative, which I feel has been blown way out of proportion. But when that's the only piece of news that's coming out besides coaches and players speak, you got to write and talk about something. So I'm not, standing on my soapbox and going, why are you talking about this? I get it. I just think I think every team that struggles doesn't have an identity. If you're losing, you don't have an identity. If you're winning, you have an identity. That's just the nature of the beast, If you lose 4 in a row, people aren't happy. You win 4 in a row, people are happy. It's just the way it goes. So, it was interesting for a day for me about the identity. I think everyone knew it. I mean, if you asked anyone on Twitter or any of the beat writers, anybody sort of that doesn't work for the Buccaneers, like, do the Bucs have an identity? Everyone would say no. But since, Jameis said it and talked about it and admitted it, and then Gerald McCoy backed it up, it was the thing to talk about. And I think Cutter kind of summed it up perfectly. He's like, yeah, we have an identity. Our identity's 2-5. That's our identity. And that's why it's just one of those things. It's like I said at the opening, it's a narrative that you can't really put your hands on. It's more of a concept or an idea. Having an identity. So yeah, what are you gonna do? I mean, it's been a very head scratching, like, long week, and I feel like the Saints game is gonna give us a lot of answers, and I'm just ready for it to be Sunday and be able to watch that game.
I'm right there with you, because I got to tell you, I might have been a little heated coming out of the Carolina game.
Yeah, you were.
I'm over that. I'm ready to get back to it. I'm ready to get back to football. But for what you're talking about, the whole identity thing, I found that real interesting. And, if anybody didn't see it, Jameis comes out and he says, our team doesn't have an identity. We're searching for it. Every year you've got a new team. The team turns over, so you got to find that new identity each year. And then, as you're right, they went and they talked to Gerald and they asked Gerald about it, and apparently his answer was, yeah, like something like, and people were reading into it a lot. And Ren, you were saying how there was not a lot of news coming out of One Buc. I'll tell you what I saw more of than anything else coming out of One Buc, and this is from all the beat writers and the media people who are there, is people listening to what the guys are saying and then interpreting their body language. I heard a lot of, it's the way he said it. Oh, it's his demeanor when he was up there. I've heard a lot of talk about that from just about across the board which I guess that's all they can do when there's not a lot of meat coming out of what they're actually saying. You know?
It was like that conversation we had with Roy Cummings, during training camp. Was the difference between being a reporter and being doing analysis work. And it's like, like we've said a few times, that's all there was to do. So we've lost 4 games, and then nothing comes out of One Buc that, there's not that soundbite or that one piece, like, because they did pretty good against Carolina on third downs, I thought, except for that one drive, the 19, I heard it was 19 plays, maybe it's 19 play drive. Besides that, I thought they did a good job against Carolina getting off third down, So it was just sort of the same old. Got to be better on third down. Cut down on the turnovers. Quit shooting ourselves in the foot. These basic, 101 football rules, how you want to make the game. And really, once Jameis threw or came out for practice and threw on Wednesday, that was sort of the end of Jameis. I don't want to say Jameis Gate, but there was a long narrative about, is this going to be the norm? Jameis only practiced on Friday. So, okay. So he had a great game against Buffalo and had a crappy game against Carolina. So him only throwing on Fridays, does that hurt or help him? Is he prepared or not? Does it hurt his timing or not? Chemistry or not? And then he comes out Wednesday and throws. So now all that gets tossed out the window. And that got thrown on the back burner. And now, it was a lot of guessing. And I think it sort of goes back to what we said. There's nothing tangible you could sort of grasp onto about this team, good or bad. Everything's just kind of blah, like in the middle. So, that's when, these, once again, I know I'm repeating, but these narratives about, leadership, heart, identity, there was one more, whatever. But I did see that you went back to your, as I've said a few times, and you've said it too, that you're a student of leadership, and I saw that you went back and looked through some of your old notebooks, because I'm assuming you went to like seminars and things like that, or classes, or maybe just like groups. Sort of like the Illuminati. Did you have like a leadership conference? A very secret.
It's a cult, actually. We have secret handshakes, and we put, ashes on our foreheads, and other things I can't tell you about. So, listen. A part of leadership is you put yourself around other good leaders, and you study what they do. You ask them what they do. Another one is you take leadership classes. The thing about leadership itself is it can be taught. There are people who have the natural ability. There are people there, and there's others who need to be taught. And there are people who are fantastic at teaching it, and they give you the tools, and the principles transfer. And that's why I'm such a big believer in it, is because the principles transfer. And to bring this back around to kind of our current conversation, just as an example of what I would say, and you might be alluding to this, getting ready to go there, Ren. Where Jameis was talking about the identity, and he said, we haven't found our identity yet. Well, the thing is you don't search for your identity. You don't wait for your identity to find you. Like, that's kind of what it sounds like they're saying. We haven't found that identity. We're going to strike upon it. We're going to get there because, as you say, identity is not a tangible thing, right?
Right.
So you can't search for it and then just kind of happen upon it and go, oh, well, I guess we're a running team, or oh, I guess we are a passing the deep ball team, or I guess we're a dink and dunk team, or like however you want to define, because that's the other thing. We've not defined what identity is. What are the different types of identity? We haven't even talked about that. They're just saying, yeah, we haven't found an identity, and it really changes every year because you have players that change every single year, which, make no mistake, this offense and even a lot of this defense is different than it was last year. So there are new pieces, there are new players, and things will change in effect. But as a part of that, you actually can set your identity. You can create your identity. And that's not to say that that's what you are, because as you said, and I think it's one of the absolute truest things. Who is this team? They're a 2-5 team. That's what they are. You are what your record says you are. They're a 2-5 team. But you create your identity, and then you strive for it. You have to go meet it. The leadership terms for that is you're casting vision. You're going from here to there. Anyway, all of that to say, that's actually something that they can move towards. It gives them a place to go, and it becomes their guiding principles for what they do. So, sorry if I completely waylaid what you were just getting ready to say, but yeah.
No, not
those
at all.
Those were a lot of the thoughts, because you're right. I did go back and I pulled out some of those old journals, and there was a lot of one of the talks was talking with a guy named Joseph Grinny, fantastic corporate leadership structure type of guy, who wrote a book called Crucial Conversations, talking about all the, when stuff's going bad, you have to have crucial conversations. They're hard, they suck. There's a right way to do them, and I can dang near guarantee you there are some crucial conversations that are not being held around one buck. Now, what are they? I'm not entirely sure. If there's just the evidence of what it looks like when things like that aren't happening that we can point to, at least from the rumors that we're hearing. Because as you say, you and I are not at one buck. We can only go by what we're hearing coming, of people saying things are like there. So, and another thing to talk about this identity thing. So Jameis comes out and he talks, oh, we have this identity, it changes year to year. Cutter comes out and he's like, well, I'll tell you who we are, we're a 2-5 team. But he also kind of parroted the same thing. Identity changes year to year because your players change from year to year. You know what it almost sounds like to me? Is this was one of those conversations that Jameis and Cutter were having in Cutter's office, kind of like we saw at the beginning of Hard Knocks, where they were kind of having a conversation and they kind of got on the same page, and then they're both coming out with the same verbiage. Or
Right.
maybe it was a team meeting or something. I tend to think it was probably more of a private conversation. I don't know.
Was it a critical conversation?
It could have been. It very much could have been. I wish that there would have been more talk of what it means to actually create the identity that they want, as opposed to just trying to find it. We're going to go out and try all these different combinations and see what happens. I wish, this is what we want to be. Okay, now what do we need to do to get there? I wish that's what they would have done. And if it was within my power, I would invest in Cutter and Jameis, specifically in actual true leadership development, because I personally believe in it. But and I've seen how it can affect every organization, no matter what type of organization it is.
And the last thing about identity before we move on, or maybe we won't, is the team does have an identity. They're inconsistent. That's their identity.
Mm-hmm.
Your identity is what you are.
Right.
You can want to be a run first team that works off play action.
Mm-hmm.
You can want to be a defense that, bends but don't break, but gets off on third down and gets timely turnovers. You can want that. That might be what you're striving for. But that's not what they are. And for some reason, when you talk about identity, in your head as a person, you automatically think it has to be good.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you rattled off all those identities. Like, do we want to be a dink and dunk? It was all these things about offense and good things.
Mm-hmm.
Your identity can also be you're terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Your identity can also be that the locker room. And I'm not saying any of this is true. I'm just sort of flipping over the other side of the coin and looking at it, the locker room is in shambles, poor leadership. It can be it can be anything.
Mm-hmm.
But, as of right now, the Buccaneers' identity is inconsistent, and that's what they are. They're inconsistent from game to game. They're inconsistent from half to half, series to series. So
I was going to say, you could go a lot shorter, a lot more concise than just half to half, from what we've watched out and what we've even detailed on this podcast before. And that's where, that's why I go back to, and I will continue to hammer this drum, and people can disagree with me, and that's okay. It doesn't bother me. But that's where I sit back and I say, the hairs on the back of my neck are standing up for things that I have seen at time and time again, and I'm saying this to me looks very familiar from what I've seen before in other organizations. It smells very familiar, and that for me is why I'm convinced. And I've said it before, I don't think the Bucs have a talent problem. They have a leadership problem. And it's more than likely that the leaders who are in place aren't leading for whatever reason. But moving on from that, unless you had something else you wanted to bring up to that, because you kind of waded into that, and I think I might have cut you off on it. No,
I think we've identified the identification out of it.
Great. Well, for those who might still be listening, let's move on to another topic. You mentioned Robert Ayers just a minute ago, and right. I found this was very interesting. I thought this was very cool, especially after all the talk of Simeon Rice. Was that last week? Was that as early as last week everything happened with Simeon Rice? I think it was. Simeon put out a tweet.
Last week or the week before.
Yeah, something like that. But Simeon this week puts out a tweet saying, I invite Robert Ayers, and called him out by name on Twitter, to come and train with me during the off season. And just full on put it out there. Said I cordially invite Robert Ayers to come and train with me this season. Then Robert Ayers went, you mean the opportunity to train with a legend? Looks like I should talk shit more often.
Yeah.
It was I think I'm quoting Robert Ayers' tweet.
Should have done it 9 years ago.
Something like that. So I found that very interesting, especially given what Robert Ayers had said in response to Simeon Rice saying that he could come back. I think it definitely shows Robert Ayers at least has an appropriate level of respect for who Simeon Rice has been, and even who he could be and what he could still be there, even if he doesn't think that Simeon Rice could come back and play in today's NFL.
Yeah, sure. Okay. I don't really know what to say to that. Yeah.
I think the appropriate reaction to that is like, oh damn, look at that. Okay, all right, moving on.
Well, yeah, except
just something fun.
I wasn't a no damn look at that. I'm not even sure what tone to take that as. I mean, you could take that tweet, sort of the way you explained it, and you can take it and just flip it on its head, which is one of the dangers with social media. That's all about how you read it. I mean, that could have been like super sarcastic.
Because you can't tweet inflections in your voice, huh?
No, you can't. Syllable. The fastest syllable. So I tend to agree with you as the way he did it, but yeah, I mean, who knows? And I don't know. I'm honestly, and I know it's because the team is losing and they're not doing well in the pass rush, but all these ex-Bucs like coming out of the woodwork when the Bucs are losing,
mm-hmm.
Offering help. It's just, I just kind of want that whole distraction to go away. Mm. There was a time, remember when Magic Johnson came out and said he had HIV virus?
Vaguely, I think I was like 8.
Okay, well, he came out and said I was in high school.
Yeah.
He came out and said he had HIV virus, and then, so he had to retire from the NBA. He was pretty much in his prime.
Mm-hmm.
Might have just won the NBA championship. If not, he won one the year before. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it took about 4 or 5 years for the Lakers finally just to get over Magic Johnson. Like, they brought him in as a consultant. Once he, was cleared of the virus, he came back and played for him. He got like a scratch on his arm. And then, that was the camera was on Magic Johnson getting treatment on the bench about how they're going to cover it up and put a wristband on it and a Band-Aid on it, and the guy that's cleaning it had like gloves on. It felt like he was in a hazmat suit, and the camera's just watching Magic Johnson get a Band-Aid on a scratch, basically is what happened. But no one really knew about HIV or it was always sort of an outlier disease,
Mm-hmm.
And Laker fan and Laker organization were always wanting to know what Magic Johnson thought. And bending over backwards, you have Magic Johnson part of the organization. And it really bogged down the Lakers as an organization. Now, I'm not saying that's what's happening with the Simeon Rice and sort of the story that came out from Pewter Report about Warren Sapp sitting with them in the press box. But the team and organization has to move beyond these guys. We talk about these players, and they all are Hall of Famers, but we talk about, Brooks, Sapp, Lynch, Barber, this defense, Simeon Rice, like they were the best defense of all time. And last pod, I went over their record. I mean, after they won the Super Bowl, I think they went like 5-11, the next year. And then the year after that, they were, they didn't break 500. The next 2 years, I might be a little off, but the point is they didn't go back to the playoffs the next 2 years. So there's just a point where it's like you just don't pay attention to that outside noise. I know you want to be respectful of Simeon Rice, but, where has Simeon Rice been? Where was he 3 years ago when the Bucs were crappy, or 2 years ago? It's all of a sudden Simeon Rice, pops up on Twitter, and now it's like, oh, we need to bring him in, and we did a whole maybe a half hour, 45 minutes on Simeon Rice. He should come back or not. Don't worry about Simeon Rice. Screw Simeon Rice. Who cares about Simeon Rice? Simeon Rice can do nothing for this team. Yeah, I thought he was a very good player, even a great player for the Buccaneers. So I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, but besides that, I could give two craps what Simeon Rice thinks about this team. I really don't. Simeon Rice is not living his life to help the Buccaneers. He's got so many things going on. And if you pipe up, once every 3 years to talk about something that you don't like, yeah, it carries a little weight because you're a potential Hall of Famer. Besides that, who cares? And that's what I'm saying about this Robert Ayers tweet.
Mm-hmm.
Who cares? Who cares? How is that helping the Tampa Bay Buccaneers win football games?
I can tell you it's not going to help us this year because the offer wasn't until the off season. And Robert Ayers, if I remember correctly, his contract with the Bucs is over at the end of the season.
I'm pretty sure.
Along with Brent Grimes, and he could be retiring. He could be looking to come back for another year or two. He could be moving on to a different team. We don't really know. But as we say, it was a slow news week. So kind of an addendum to last week's story. I found it interesting to the extent of just going, look at that. Very interesting, and it was enough for me to write it down on my notes. Speaking of another guy that is looking at retiring, Brent Grimes. I found this just to be a little bit interesting. You and I have posited the idea that he will most likely not be back next year. I have said because I think he's going to retire, and that certainly is what it looked like. I actually put it out to Miko. She for her podcast, she said, "Hey, somebody, throw out a bunch of questions," and I asked her. I said, "What's the chance? What's the likelihood? What's the percentage? 0 to 100% that Brent's going to retire at the end of this year?" And her answer, her response on her podcast was, "It depends on how the rest of this year goes." And she said, "And I don't know." She said, "I don't know. This is just my feeling. This is just what I think he's going to do." So it very much sounds like it's his decision ultimately. But she said that if this year continues to tank, he's not going to want to go out on that. So he'll probably come back for another year. She doesn't think he's going to go to the NBA. She doesn't think he's going to go play. So
he can't play. He can't play in the NBA.
Not at this age. She says if he would have focused on that back when he was young and gone through his original plan, she thinks he would have been really good in the NBA. But at this point in his career, he wouldn't even be the backup of a backup at this point, is what she was saying. So it's not he's going to try to bail out of the NFL and go to the NBA. That's not the case. He's just going to retire eventually, as all of them do. But her impression is that if this team continues to suck, he's not going to want to go out with that being his final season. So the greater the likelihood of him coming back, not necessarily with the Bucs. Certainly if the team does suck through the rest of this, he's not going to come back for another year with the Buccaneers. He's going to come back and try for a chance at greatness and be with a good team so he can go out on a high note. So I found that rather interesting.
Yeah, that's fair, and kudos to you for asking the question. And
kudos to her for actually answering it, to be honest with you.
That was the next thing coming out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Kudos to her for actually answering it. I don't think even so. Basically, what she's saying is if the Bucs turn this thing around and they make the playoffs, Brent's going to retire.
He wants to go out on a high note. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I think what that means is either way, he's not in Tampa Bay next year. As far as we're concerned, I think that's probably what that means.
What if he comes back? He's out for spoiler alert. He's out for the Saints game with a shoulder, which will be his third game he's missed because of the same shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
His body might not hold up for next year, but I can see him, being headhunted for 1 year to a really good team, Super Bowl contender. It's like, hey, as I've said before, you're the last piece to shore up this defense for us. You just got to, you don't even have to practice, just show up on Sundays type of deal. But what if he makes the Pro Bowl this year? Is that a high note? Say he comes back and plays the rest of the games, plays like the last 8 games, and he makes the Pro Bowl. Is that a high note?
I don't know. That's a question between him and Miko that only those two are going to have to, it'll be up to those two. So it'll be interesting to see. It'll be real interesting to see. But I was very impressed with her response. Very
honest.
It was very honest. It was very, it wasn't expletive laden at all. It was just real. Hey, so what's the percentage you think Brent's going to retire? Here's what I think. So it's, I very much appreciate it. So Miko, if you're listening, thank you. I very much appreciate you answering that question.
I have an update.
Go for it.
Robert Ayers is under contract through next year.
So one more year with Robert Ayers. Okay.
Yeah.
So to go back and answer that question, listen, I think anytime somebody can go back and train with anyone who is doing it well, that's only going to help you. It's not going to hurt you. So the idea that Robert can go and train, and regardless if it's Simeon Rice or if it's, I don't know, name another real famous defensive end throughout history.
Michael Strahan.
Okay, Michael Strahan. If he can go train with Michael Strahan, but is Michael Strahan keeping in the same shape that Simeon Rice is obviously keeping in? I don't know. I don't know that it really matters. Yeah,
it's not about shape. It's about knowledge.
If Jameis could go and spend a day training with Brett Favre, would you not take that?
Well, okay, here's something. Here's what I didn't talk about. And honestly, because I kind of forgot, and this is also what I really don't like about the tweet. I don't know Simeon Rice, but Simeon Rice thinks he can do just about anything. And who am I to say that he can't? I've called him a Renaissance man. He's a filmmaker, he's a director, he's a writer, he's like the next generation of humans. He's like 6'7", dazzling smile, articulate, really smart guy. He's a good looking dude. He's the freak, that people talk about. Freak athlete. He's just freakish in every way. Do you think Simeon Rice invited him to come train with him so he could embarrass him?
No, I don't think that
outwork him? I'll show you, young buck, you say I can't play, and just crossfits the hell out of him, makes him puke. You know what I mean? It's I would not put that past Simeon Rice. Not that I'm saying he's a jerk or you could also read the tweet as sort of like a gauntlet thrown.
Sure.
Hey, I could come and help you guys, and okay, old man, you sit on the sidelines. All right, young buck, come work out with me in the off season. You'll see what's up. you could take the tweet that way. So, I don't know. I just kind of wanted to say that because I just think I'm tired of talking about Simeon rights. I really am. I mean, where the team is now, and it's frustrating, and no sacks. The list goes on and on and on. But talking about Simeon Rice is no way, once again, going to help this team win football games.
All right. Well, as you're tired about that, I'm tired of talking about it, to be honest with you. So let's move on. I've only got 2 more things, so unless you have some other things off the top of your head with that. One of them, we referenced this just a little bit earlier, but I do want to go into it. Jameis Winston this week practiced all 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. In fact, on the injury report, spoiler alert, he was listed as full participation for Friday. Sorry, this is coming out on Saturday morning, so yesterday. He was listed as full participation. He says that his shoulder feels as good as it has since the injury. Of course, we know lots of other people out there are saying that it's way worse than they're letting on.
Also lies.
And Ren, I feel obliged to you yourself have said that, at least as far as Cutter goes, these aren't guys who are coming out lying to us. They don't come out and lie to us. They're telling us the truth. So, that being said, I'll give the microphone to you.
I talked about it earlier, how, this Jameis thing was becoming bigger and bigger. People were talking about, ex-doctors from this place watched some film and, I think he has a rotator cuff. Never looking at an x-ray, never examining him, just, watching him throw some footballs on the TV. Okay, here's what I know for sure. If Jameis' shoulder is injured in any way where it's going to be long-term damage, he would be shut down by now. I mean, the doctors are paid by the organization. This isn't, this isn't Friday Night Lights where, what's the percentage it can tear? About 50%. That's good enough. Shoot him up with some cortisone and get him on out there. These guys get paid too much. They mean too much to the franchise, especially at the quarterback position. So that's not happening. Do I believe Jameis thinks, I've heard him say shoulder feels good, shoulder feels great. Do I believe him? Absolutely not. But that's sort of rhetoric that you say when you have that injury, have an injury. How's your knee feel? If you're a boxer and, you have a sore left shoulder and you can't throw the left hook with, as much power as you'd like to going into a fight, are you going to tell your opponent that?
No, absolutely not.
No.
Yeah.
No, you're going to say your shoulder's 100%. It's 120%. Actually, coming back from the surgery, it's never been stronger. So I don't think Jameis' shoulder hinders his throwing. Mm-hmm. I think it makes him uncomfortable. But, there's plenty of things that, Jameis can take. I think they said on the telecast against Carolina, it was very brief, something like, Jameis says that he gets so amped for the game or has the adrenaline running, he doesn't even feel his shoulder. It's not sore till after the game or maybe the next day when he wakes up type of deal. That may be true, but there's plenty of things that you can, that the NFL doctors have to shoot up to sort of take that pain away for Jameis for 3 hours. So, I think right now it's a non-story, and this is what I fear the most, because I'm very tired. Because I keep saying I'm tired of talking about this because I am. I'm also tired of talking about Jameis' shoulder. If he comes out and has a bad game, like accuracy wise, like he throws a little high outside and has a couple picks, if he gets tackled on that shoulder, this is all going to start back up again. He has to come out and throw a game where he throws around 65 to 70%, no interceptions and a couple of touchdowns, and then this will finally go away. Or if we win, then by the time the storylines get around to Jameis' shoulder on Thursday or Friday, no one really will be listening anymore because everyone's talking about how do we duplicate what we did to the Saints.
Yep. I think what you just said, I'm tired of talking about all this stuff because we keep talking about it, is exactly right. And everybody's talking about it, right? Everybody's talking about Jameis' shoulder because it's this is probably this and the next topic are probably the single two things that have been talked about ad nauseum this week. As far as Jameis' shoulder, I'm going to go with you on that. Listen, if it was bad enough, they'd shut him down. You know, if they really felt that the season was full on lost, they'd probably, possibly shut him down. But it's not, and so I'm going to roll with it. And as you've said, Cutter's not a guy who comes out and just flat out lies to us. Now, he may not tell the full truth of stuff. He may just
or deflect or dodge.
He may do all of that, but he's not lying to us. And at the same time, you know, when Cutter says, "Listen, that's a medical decision," he just go. If they come and tell him that Jameis is ready to play, he's going to go out and he'll play. You know, and he even mentioned it. Listen, I saw something happen last week. I was about to take Jameis out of the game, but I didn't. So you know, he seems perfectly willing to make the call if he feels like he needs to make the call. But if they come back and they tell him he's good to go, then coach is going to play him. And coach isn't stupid, right? Like, he's keeping an eye out for this. He is fully aware of this. In the back of his head, he's got to be thinking the same thing, right? Man, should I just shut it down? Should I shut it down? He's thinking the same thing. And as long as Jameis can go and they keep telling him he's ready to go, then certainly he can do that.
Well, we'll see how serious it is if the Bucs get to a point where they feel the playoffs are out of reach. If they shut him down, if they eventually shut him down for the year, you know, if he doesn't take another hit, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we'll see.
If the organization, the team, the front office feels like I feel, which is if you lose this game to the Saints, the playoffs are out of reach. You know, I've gone as far as to say that if you lose another division game, the playoffs are out of reach. Obviously, as the season goes down and, you know, teams win or lose, that could change a little bit. But for the next 6-7 weeks, or I should say, about 5 weeks, because we got this, and then I think we got 2 non-division games, and then we sort of start that gauntlet. I stand by that. Like, if we lose this Saints game, as far as the playoffs go, the season's over. If the front office starts to feel that way too, and then they shut Jameis down, then we could start having the conversation that his shoulder's really more hurt than not. Because I think that getting Jameis game time experience outweighs him possibly getting hurt. But if you're risking his future just to try to win games, I think they'd shut him down.
That's a bold statement you just made, Ren, and I don't know that I disagree with it. I know a lot of Bucs fans would.
Which part?
Where you said getting him in-game experience is more important than preventing a possible future injury. I don't think that's a bold statement. I think I might agree with you on that. Oh, I don't know. I know a lot of Bucs fans would highly disagree with you on that. However, I'm not
sure you understand what I'm saying, because I don't think it's that bold of a statement. What I'm saying is, if his shoulder is hurt and it stays the way it is with a strained AC joint, then keep playing him. But but if it's more than they're telling us, and the season, as far as the playoffs go, go away in a puff of smoke, then you sit him. But I believe
right. But there are fans right now who would say sit him right now no matter what. There are fans who want to see Jameis not benched. They want to see him sat. They want to see him resting his shoulder right now. They don't want to see him practicing 3 times a week. They want to see him resting right now.
Is it about resting his shoulder, or is it about Fitzpatrick did well in the second half? Let's give him a chance. Let's sit Jameis down because he's turning over the ball a lot. Let him watch from the sidelines type of deal. Is it
there are some
they want
fans
to sit him
who
down
do
for
that,
the
and
heel, or they want to sit him down because of its play?
There are some fans who do it one way. There are some fans who do it the other way. The ones who do it the way you just suggested, of because they want to go with Fitzpatrick over Jameis, they need to stop. They just do. Listen, if you're one of those fans, I love you. We can still be friends, but no. If you want to sit Jameis because you think he's hurt, you think he's more hurt than what they're letting on, and you want to give him a chance to heal, I could agree with you on that, but I think Ren might be right on the other side of, and listen, unless there's a big risk of him going and doing a full-on tear, if he can play through the pain like most football players do, Ren, I can remember sitting in the locker room comparing bruises when I was playing football. Like, you played through pain. Like, that was a hallmark of being a football player, right? If Jameis can play through the pain, he's going to play through the pain, and he should, because as you say, the game experience is more important than temporary pain. But that's what I mean when I say, wow, that's why I think that's a bold statement, because and I can see why it's maybe a little bit less of a bold statement if you say it's just playing through pain. But the idea of continuing to play him to get more experience over, even with the risk of a little bit of a risk anyway of further injury, because there's always a risk, right? Anytime you step on the field, there's a risk of more injury, right? So
yeah,
that's interesting, and I think I agree with you on that. I really do. All right, final thing, and this is probably we heard the chance of this leaving the game on Friday, or at least we've heard of the chance of this leaving on Friday. It's just what's been out there, and the big one I think it all comes back to, apparently Mike Lombardi. I'll be honest, I don't even know who he is. Apparently he has a podcast. He's some big talking head somewhere. Says that he hears a lot of people in the NFL saying that John Gruden is the next guy for the Bucs job. Our friend James Jarko over at Pewter Plank, wrote a big article this week saying, can we please stop with all the bring Gruden back nonsense? Here, I agree with that. A lot of people have been asking. I think more people on social media, to be fair, have been asking if it's a good thing rather than chanting that it is a good thing. I think people are at least asking the question, broaching the question. Ren, I'd like to put this one to bed for us because, my God, and I hope that this is the last time that this is ever a thing. But Gruden, yay or nay? Back as coach, firing Cutter?
No, absolutely not.
No.
I talked about it on the main show.
Yes.
A couple of days ago about his record. I just pulled it up real quick again, and I was right. He, after the Super Bowl, he had 2 losing seasons back to back. Take out the 12-4 first year in 2002. He's like 41 and 50. He's 45 and 51 as a head coach. 45 and 51. That's 6 games under 500 with the Buccaneers, not as a head coach total, with the Buccaneers. So, I think people it's kind of like the Simeon Rice thing. You only remember the good stuff.
Right.
And I don't even know if John Gruden knows how to develop. And before I say this, John Gruden has forgotten more football than not only I'll ever know, but like you and I put together, and maybe 95% of the state of Florida football knowledge put together. I mean, the guy's a football nut junkie. I get that, but he's never had a young quarterback to develop, to my knowledge. When he was head coach at Oakland, he had Gannon. Head coach at Tampa Bay, he had Brad Johnson. So I don't even know if that's the best thing for the team or the best thing for Jameis. Like, I just don't know. And once again, I don't have a problem with Cutter.
Right.
And anything he does. I wasn't, jumping on the give up the play call bandwagon, which died because they put up 27 points against a good Buffalo team, then came back a little bit because they only scored 3 points against a Panthers team. It's looking for stuff to write about, and I get it. I think it goes back to what I said in the opening. When things aren't working, you just start grasping and trying to figure out what is wrong. The 4-game lose streak. Well, hey, maybe Monken can, take over the play calling. Defense doesn't have any sacks. Warren Sapp can be the defensive line coach, or let's fire Jay Hayes, or bring in Simeon Rice as a defensive edge consultant. Like, there's all these things because you're just not winning. And, if we beat the Saints this Sunday, things will honestly look a lot brighter than we have the Jets and Dolphins coming up. They're not as big as pushovers as we thought they were.
Right.
But the Dolphins definitely looks like they're hoisting the white flag, because Cutler's still out, I believe. They traded Jai, so they're gathering draft picks for Gase's, that's the head coach, second run. And then the Jets, who are, I said it before, they're kind of like us. You're not sure what you're going to get. I think they're 4-5. They just manhandled Buffalo on Thursday night, but they also have 5 losses. They're just as Jekyll and Hyde as we are. You don't know what team's going to show up against the Jets. So they're very winnable games. So a 3-game win streak and all the stuff we're talking about will just go away. Or a couple of sacks, if they get 3 sacks in a game, it'll be like, if they get 3 sacks into the Saints and win.
Right. We're making a statement to the league.
We're making a statement to the league, man. Here comes a playoff run. All we got to duplicate, bottle that, just bring that out. Must have had a good week of practice, whatever. It just, and once again, I get it because I'm the same way. When something's not working, I'm under the hood right away trying to figure out why. Mm-hmm. And, there's no answers right now.
Yeah, here's the thing. I don't care if it's Gruden or any other coach out there. No, we're not getting rid of Cutter at the end of the season, or at least we shouldn't. Now, listen, with this ownership group, who knows? Because history tells us they very well could get rid of Cutter at the end of the season.
Depends how the season goes. What if they don't win another game?
If they don't win another game, what if Jameis does go on IR? Does that give them a reprieve? Does that give them the possibility is certainly there. I'm not worried about the possibility because we can't control what the ownership group is going to do. Glazers, if you happen to be listening to this, I would implore you, no. Get us off this track and this roller coaster of changing coaches every 2 years. I did a little bit of homework though, Ren.
All right.
A little bit of homework, make a little graph. I'm still working on it. It's not complete. But I started asking myself the question. So, the big thing, the word that I hear about Cutter's deal this year is the word regression. Everybody's regressing under Cutter's second year.
Right.
So I decided, I put out a little poll just because I needed a definition of what regressing actually meant. And I asked the question of how many, just from a win-loss record standpoint, how many losses it equates to a regression. And the vast majority of people answered 3 to 4. If you lose 3 to 4 more games this year than you did the previous year, they qualify that as a regression. So that is my very scientific basis for having that as what we qualify as a regression. Okay? And I went in and I looked at Bill Belichick's years since he's been with the Patriots. I've looked at Mike Tomlin since he's been up with the Steelers, Mike McCarthy since he's been with Green Bay, Pete Carroll since he's been with Seahawks, Andy Reid since he was actually with the Eagles, and then I looked at Andy Reid with the Chiefs. Are you catching a trend of the type of coaches, the caliber of coaches that I'm looking at right now? Mm-hmm. As far as coaches who have been around for a long time, coaches who have been kept for a long time.
Coaches that maybe didn't start off.
Or coaches that did start off and then regressed. Let's look at Bill Belichick. His first year, with the Patriots, won, and these are dividing numbers. I think he went 5-11, if I'm understanding this number right. And then he bumped it up and went 9-7, maybe 10-6. And then he fell back down and barely scraped over a 500 year. And then he kind of came back up, had a couple of good runs, and then he regressed. And then he comes in and they had a perfect season. Remember that year that they went 16-0? And they only went to they lost the Super Bowl. They got the AFC Championship and they lost the Super Bowl. And then the next year they went 11-5. Okay, well, you just lost 5 more games that year than you did the year previous. That's qualifies by our definition as a regression. But they stayed with Bill Belichick. My point being, now there's that. And then we could go into Mike Tomlin. He's had a very similar situation. Mike McCarthy has actually stayed pretty steady, though there have been at least 2 times that he's dipped down. Hell, one year he went winning 11-5, and the very next year he went winning 5-11. But they stayed with him. Pete Carroll has also had a similar situation. Andy Reid had similar situations, but they stuck with these guys. And as the years progressed, here's what you see. And I color-coded, like, here's when they made the playoffs, here's when they did the AFC Championship, or their NFC Championship, and here's when they did the Super Bowl. And I color-coded. And what you see across the board is the first couple of years are playoffs, no playoffs, playoffs, no playoffs, and then just a string of playoffs after that, occasionally with a no playoff in there.
Right, where somebody probably got hurt.
Exactly. So, like, are the Packers going to go to the playoffs this year with Aaron Rodgers hurt?
No.
Probably not. I don't know what their record is right now, but they're probably not. And this would be the first time that the Packers haven't gone to the playoffs in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably like 10 years. So my point of this being, guys, and Bucs fans, if I could implore you, those of you who are on the fire cutter, bring Gruden back. You're looking for an answer. You got to find somebody to blame. Relax, chill out. These things, it's not a big regression. I think we're misusing the word. I think this is normal in the coaching careers, and I'll release this. I'll put this on a plot graph so you can just visually look at it and see the up and down nature of what coaches have from a year-to-year basis. And if you stay with the coach, the trend line, because you have the line that goes up and down, up and down, up and down, and then you have the line that you kind of trend it. That line goes up and to the right. And you can't do that after two set points of data, which would be year one and year two.
Not even two.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You can't do that. And right now it's not even two, as you point out. So, my point being, I don't care who's knocking on the door, whether it's Gruden or somebody else. No, we need to stick with this coaching thing. And I know our friend Trevor over at Pewter Report, he was kind of making the argument, listen, if you don't have your guy, then you don't have your guy. You need to find your guy, even if it's only been 2 years. Trevor, I hear what you're saying. You don't have enough data to know if this is your guy yet or not. It's why when people, want to say, hey, Jameis is the greatest quarterback of all time after his rookie year or his second year, you don't have enough data points to say that yet. And to say, oh, I think Jameis is regressing. There's not enough data to show that just yet. It's just not there. We've got to give it more time across the board. We've got to give it more time. And that's what I would implore Bucs fans. Just realize, and I think the vast majority, Ren, by the way, the vast majority, at least of our listeners, are of the understanding we can't keep changing coaches every 2 years. They understand that, and they get that.
Right.
Vast majority.
Yeah, and, like I said, go on a little 3-game winning streak and everything's forgiven. We'll be talking about, I guess it just takes the Bucs 8 games to figure it out, because what they did last year.
Right.
Well,
let's say they win this one, right? And then they go on this big winning streak. Well, then we figured it out 1 game sooner.
Right. Yeah. So
this one only took us 7 games.
And interesting about all those coaches that you were talking about, they all got fired except for, I don't think McCarthy's been fired, and Tomlin, but the Steelers don't fire anybody. They've had
3 head coaches.
Yeah.
Since the Bucs had been an organization.
I think they've had 3 head coaches total.
In Chuck Knowles.
It was Chuck Knoll, and then it went to Bill Cowher, and now it's Mike Tomlin. The Rooneys don't fire people.
Exactly.
They believe in the slow game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but Belichick got fired for Cleveland, from Cleveland.
After he had a regression, because he took them 11-5 in his 3rd year. His 4th year, he wound up just, I think they reversed it. It was a 5-11 team, and they wound up firing him the next year. It was a knee-jerk reaction because of regression, and look where Belichick went after that. Pete Carroll, kind of a similar situation out of the Patriots, got fired from the Patriots.
And Bill Belichick took over for him.
Exactly, and good move on the Patriots' part, to get a guy like that. But even still, Bill Belichick's first year with the Patriots was only 3-13.
5-11.
Something like that. It was .313. That might be where I said 313.
It's 5-11. I'm looking at it.
Are you? Okay. Yeah. It wasn't a great year. Let's put it that way. His first year with the Patriots wasn't a fantastic year. Was not. But I mean, Andy Reid, you look at Andy Reid's time with the Eagles, his was very up and down, and he got fired after 2 down years.
He got fired for going to the NFC Championship game 4 years in a row. That's why he got fired.
Yeah. And then he goes over to the Chiefs, though, and in his 4 years with the Chiefs, he's been to the playoffs 3 times.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, guys. You can't keep
Come on,
changing
guys.
coaches. You can't keep changing coaches. Okay. Ren, that's all I have as far as headlines or anything that's jumped out to me. Did you have anything you want to do, or shall we go ahead and move on to the injury report?
Let's move on to the injury report.
Beautiful. Let's start with the New Orleans Saints because they are shorter than ours. They have a couple of guys, Terron Armstead. I don't even know who these people are. A couple of guys, they didn't participate, limited participation. Their game status.
They're all starting offensive line. Terron Armstead and Andrus Peat have actually been cleared. They're going to play. But starting guard Larry Warford has been out. Now, normally you would playing, any other team were playing the Saints, you would say this is good for the defensive line. Got a couple guys banged out, got a starter out, but not so with our defensive line. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Talk about how sacks come in bunches and we got to play better and we're going to turn it around now and all this stuff. We'll see. I would like to think that, this is going to happen eventually, but, it's to the point where it's like fool me once. And I feel like I've been fooled like 3 times by the Buccaneers defense already this year, or the defensive line. So now it's, you got to prove it before I believe it, or say it's going to happen.
I agree with that because, people talk about how bad this year's been, but I go back to the Bears game. Bears was a pretty good game,
Get 3 turnovers.
Yeah. Bears was a great game. And then Minnesota sucked. And then, who was it next? Giants? Giants wasn't horrible. I mean, I don't know. It's up now. I don't want to go through that. All right. Looking at the Buccaneers injury report, we already talked about Brent Grimes is out with a shoulder injury. This will be the 2nd week in a row, and this will be the 3rd time this season he has been out. Let's talk about people clearing the injury report. Robert McClain, Josh Robinson, who both have been in the concussion protocol, are both now out of the concussion protocol, spent the full week in full participation. They will play. I suppose the big question coming out of there is, last week our corners seemed to do okay. We had Vernon over at left cornerback. We had, who was over at right? Ryan Smith. And then we had Jameis in the nickel. Does Bobby McClain come in and take one of those 2 positions? Does he take the left and push Vernon back over to the right? Or does he take the right and leave Vernon at left?
Or does Vernon go to the slot?
And Bobby
leave
goes
Ryan
to left?
Smith.
Yeah.
Or does Bobby go to the slot?
Or does Bobby not go and we actually stick with the original 3? I doubt that's going to be what happens. But any thoughts on there if you're kind of looking into your crystal ball and making a projection?
No.
Yeah, it's a who knows.
Who knows? Because you would like to think that. Well, I shouldn't say like to, but if Bobby McClain won the starting job eventually, like he did, or maybe it was a necessity because Vernon was playing so bad, the outside corner, you would think that that's where we'd go because, you really don't lose your job because of injury. But if the Buccaneers like Bobby's skill set so much more above Javian Elliott than they like him at one of the outside corners above Ryan Smith or Vernon Hargreaves, then he might get moved to the slot. It's going to be interesting to see. I can see a combination of these are the guys who are going to start. Robert McClain, Vernon Hargreaves, and Ryan Smith. Now, Ryan Smith is either – actually, you know what? He might not even start because it could be Bobby McClain, Vernon Hargreaves, and Javian Elliott in the slot. Who knows, man?
It's a combination. You got 3 positions and you got 4 players, and it could be any of those combinations.
Well, you would like to think that it would be, Ryan Smith, Vernon, and McClain, but Ryan Smith can't play slot, or hasn't played slot, I should say. So he's not going to be there. So if the team likes Bobby McClain and Vernon as their best 2 outside cover guys, then, that puts Javian Elliott in the slot. But your best overall 3 cornerbacks are McClain, Vernon, and Ryan Smith. So it all depends on how serious the Bucs are about getting the best 11 on the field. Because if you get the best 11 on the field, then you're going to have to put Bobby McClain in the slot to keep Smith and Vernon on the field.
All right, and so
we shall see.
We shall see. Certainly shall be interesting. All right, the rest of everybody on the injury report is questionable, so we'll see who actually suits up. Robert Ayers, though, is a late addition to the injury report. He only appears on Friday under limited practice or limited participation with an ankle injury. Chris Baker Swaggy is back to full participation by Thursday and Friday. Kendall Beckwith was limited all week long. Adam Humphries was back to full participation by Friday with a rib injury where he kind of got bent over backwards in this last game. And then obviously Jameis Winston, limited participation Wednesday and Thursday, full participation on Friday with his shoulder injury. I don't know if there's any surprises there to you, Ren, or if anything jumps out to you as, hey, this person may or may not play.
Robert Ayers, that's, being such a late addition on Friday, that probably means he turned his ankle sometime Thursday, or turned it early Friday, something like that. I expect him to go. I expect everybody to go except for maybe Kendall Beckwith, and that's because there is such good depth behind him. Mm-hmm. It all depends on if it's the same knee that he had, reconstruction or ACL surgery on coming out of college. I guess he would be the guy that you could possibly sit and not really lose anything because he's not on the field that much now that Quan and Levante David are back. James is going to play. Josh Robinson's going to play. I think Hump's going to play. And it might be just more of he's that guy that, Hump is constantly on the bubble, sort of like Russell Shepard was, under Dirk Cutter. He made that comment one time. He's like, Shep's always a guy you're trying to replace, but, at the end of training camp, there he is on your roster. And I think Adam Humphrey's sort of that guy now. He's replaceable. He's very solid. He's very good at what he does, but, it doesn't really take much to find someone a little better than him, because of his, height, size, ratio. So I think Adam will play just because it's one of those things where he doesn't want to get George pipped. If he doesn't play and Godwin has this fantastic game, running out of the slot and switching in and out of the slot with Mike Evans, and then they sort of roll with those guys going forward and Adam being the fourth wide receiver. So, but I expect, I think the only person who is not going to play besides Brent Grimes is a possibility to be Kendall Beckwith, and that's just more of a precautionary because there is such good depth at linebacker.
All right. Well, that would, I did know everything you say, by the way. All right. Well, that brings us to potential inactives for the game.
All right.
We'll put on there. We need 7 of these guys. We'll put our people who've been on there the last bunch of weeks. We'll just assume they're there. Holly will probably be there. Leonard Wester will probably be there. We know Grimes will be there. He's already been declared out. Anthony O'Clair probably will be there. Silver Salinga very well could be there. So that gives us 5 guys. Ren, I don't know if you want to move any of those guys off, but we're still looking for 2 more if we leave those guys in.
Right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and go with Beckwith, just because I just have a gut feeling about it. I could be totally wrong. And then, who else? Should I pick safety? Nah. Can't be defensive end.
I don't know. You think Darryl Tapp's going to play
this
week? You think we're going to dress him? I mean,
that's such a, that's. I don't really know if he's here. I think they are.
And Daisy Olatoye is a cornerback, is a guy we brought in last week. Or those are at least 2 of the new guys. We didn't really see anything out of them last week.
I think Olatonwe will dress because Grimes is out. If Grimes comes back, he might not even be on the roster next week if Grimes if they feel like Grimes is going to play. So, gosh, I don't know. I should have thought about this earlier. Let's see.
Beckwith makes sense. We still have Glanton. You get Quan, you get Levante. You still have Glanton. I feel like they're gonna if Beckwith feels like he can go, I think they're gonna keep him in there, and we might see some of these other guys, sub out.
Maybe Peyton Barber.
It's possible, but he plays a lot of special teams.
He does play a lot of special teams.
Yeah. And they like to stick him in there for
whatever reason.
1 or 2 plays, which I think is just to show us how many plays he's not actually getting.
I don't understand why they do that.
Yeah.
I really don't. It drives me nuts. Like, there's 2 people that should get the ball, Doug Martin and Charles Sims, and that's it. Like, you have enough toys in the toy box. You don't need to, you don't need to play with the little green army man at the bottom.
And you could argue that Charles Sims shouldn't get the ball, because if they trot Charles Sims out there, then my God, you know what kind of play we're getting ready to run, right?
Well, yeah, but it's going to be 3rd down, and that's why he's out there. I mean, what are the chances? Even if Doug Martin was out there at 3rd down, it was 3rd and 8, and you hand him the ball off, you don't make it, people are going to go ballistic. So I don't really fall into that. It's going to be a pass because Charles Sims is out there. Who gives a shit?
Mm-hmm.
It's a 50-50 guess anyway.
Sure.
I mean, does it really matter if they know you're going to pass? What? I mean,
let's flip a coin 10 times and see how many times you guess right.
Yeah, I mean, Charles Sims is in there on down and distance. They've given the ball a few times. If it's like 3rd and 3 or 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1, and Charles Sims go in there, they've given the ball. He picked up a 1st down, on one of the 2 runs I think he's had this year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a total giveaway, but who cares?
Is it okay? Let me ask you this: is it possible Jaquiz Rogers actually gets sat over Peyton Barber, as we were talking about the running backs?
You would think so, because of special teams. It's because Peyton Barber plays, special teams so much more.
And Cutter's talked about that. If you're going to be on the team and you're not one of the starting guys, you better be playing special teams. And to my knowledge, Jaquiz Rogers, I don't think he plays special teams. I might be wrong, but I don't think he does.
I just feel like I'm forgetting somebody for some reason. Like, there's one guy that's really obvious that I just feel like they should
Ryan
deactivate.
Russell.
No, he just got back.
Patrick Murray. Deactivate Patrick Murray.
There you go. Yeah, Brian Anger. I mean, it's just so easy to go for a defensive lineman because we have so many, like Will Clark, or like you said, Ryan Russell.
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely go with the new cornerback, but Dejai.
Mm-hmm.
But with Brent Grimes out, I think they want the depth. But then again, Josh Robinson is back, but he's really a safety, but he's played tons of corner. He played corner for Minnesota. He was backup corner for us last year. I don't know.
All right. I'm going to go with Tapp. I'm going to put Tapp on there just because the rest of our defensive line, they're starting. They've been in the system for a while. They know what they're doing. Quote unquote, they know what they're doing. And, supposedly they're all healthy. So, I think that leaves him. They brought him in for depth. Everybody's okay right now. I think everybody will be playing. So I see Darryl Tapp going out. And if you leave Beckwith in, that'll make the 7. It's possible that it could wind up being one of our other linebackers, maybe Cam Lynch, though I doubt it. He does really good on special teams too. So I don't know. It's a guess. Yeah, it's a guess. We'll find out.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, we'll find out 12 o'clock or so. On Sunday. So. All right, Ren. Well, that is going to do it for us for the Buck in the News segment for this week. Any final thoughts, or just let people know where they can find you and see more of your work out there on the internet?
The easiest way is Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at Rendax, REN_DAXT. I have really fallen behind on talking to people on Twitter. I apologize. I've gotten a handful of DM messages, and I have totally ignored them this week. So I will get back to that tomorrow. I actually had Chef actually DM me. He's like, "Hey, you okay? Haven't seen you. You've been quiet this week." Yeah, I sort of dumped social media and this week. I don't really have an excuse for it. I just didn't. Every time I opened it, I instantly went into a little bit of a depression, and I didn't want to be on it. So if you've talked to me, let me start all over. At RenDax, REN_DXT on Twitter. I'm always down to talk Buccaneers football, and I do apologize for not responding to the people that have DM'd me and asked me questions about the Buccaneers this week. But I think I'm 99% sure I'll be getting back at it tomorrow, which would be Saturday.
And unless the Bucs are losing, you might be able to catch them during the game as well.
No.
Ren doesn't do it during the game.
I do not open Twitter during Buccaneers football games.
However, you can find me on Twitter at Brent Allen Live personally, or on Facebook.com/Brent Allen Live, or you can always find the show at the Pewtercast on Twitter, Facebook.com/the Pewtercast. You can email the show, thepewtercast@gmail.com. This is an away game, so we will be back with our instant cast. We'll plan right now for our normal 9 o'clock time slot on Sunday night. So you guys can join us there, mixler.com/the Pewtercast. Go at 9 o'clock, and you guys can call in, and we'll talk about the game. Right, wrong, good, bad. We will be back to our PG-13 rating for this particular week after last week's not PG-13 rating. But other than that, I think that's going to get us for tonight. So, hey guys, listen, our Bucs come out and win this week. It puts us at 3-5, which is exactly where we were this time last year. So listen, the season is not over, although the window's closing. So, with that said, when you go out there, the Bucs can put some stuff up. Quan Alexander seems very, very up on this team, saying, listen, we about to do this. So, hope Quan's right. And, with that, we are all Bucs fans, and we say with one voice, go Bucs.